Good evening. Welcome to the Malden Board of Appeal. Today is September 20th, 2023. The Malden Board of Appeal will hold a public hearing Wednesday, September 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at Malden City Hall, 215 Pleasant Street, room 106, the Herbert L. Jackson Council Chambers, Malden, Mass. On the following named petitions. Beautiful. So this meeting is now open. So tonight we have one member who has to recuse themselves, and so we are going to be using our two alternate members. So the roll call will reflect that.
Okay, roll call: Kramer.
Here.
Froyo.
Yeah.
Sherwin. Here. King.
Here.
Chu. Here. Kodavarian. Thank you. Absent is Catherine Bilchin. Oh, and you did say for they're both.
For what?
You did mention both alternates of vote.
Yes, so tonight both alternates are voting. Okay, so the first order of business is to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve. We do it here.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Froyo, second by King to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2023. All right. Sherwin?
Yes.
Froyo?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Kramer?
Yes.
Thank you. Actually, and we'll take the two alternates tonight. Chu?
I wasn't here last meeting, so can I abstain?
Yep.
So
that's what
I
we
believe
filled.
John can vote on these
Minutes.
minutes, but he cannot vote on this petition.
Okay, so we're all set. We have four approved.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so the first and only petition that we are hearing tonight is petition 23-007 by 100 Maplewood Street LLC, seeking variances under Code of the City of Malden as amended, Title 12, Section 12.20.010, basically, off-street parking and loading regulations, retail sale and services in Section 12.20.030, general loading requirements, number of bays or areas required per plans, CMID 028536-2019 at the property known as and numbered 888 Eastern Ave, Malden, Mass., formerly known as 100 Maplewood Street, Malden, Mass., and also known as City Assessor's Parcel ID 127433302. Hello, are you here for this petition? Yes, I am. Okay. Let me turn your mic on here. All right, you should be good.
Good evening. I think I'll put it over here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas Callahan, with offices at 1 Center Street, Malden, here on behalf of the 100 Maplewood Street LLC, Andreas Zitos, the manager of the LLC. This is a...
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Sure.
Maybe you can move the mic. Can you move the mic to the left of you?
Yeah,
There you go.
That's probably better. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. This situation we're here tonight to petition you for is rather unusual. We had a snafu, I suppose you'd call it, or misunderstanding, or we could come up with more words to describe it, but the crux of it is that plans were approved by this board, by the planning board twice, without the loading bay requirement being addressed.
I'm listening. I'm just going to shut the door.
So we're here tonight because of that reason. The project at 100 Maplewood Street is fully constructed and occupied at this point. There's no opportunity whatsoever to install loading bays. And in talking with the building commissioner, we suggested having loading areas. And I'd like to approach, if I may, and have a handout for the board, which I think is helpful.
Here, I can put this up so they can hear you on TV what you're saying.
Well, I'm just going to give you the,
Oh, okay.
yeah, to pass out to the.
Oh, I think we have this.
The site plan?
Well, it's the previous plan versus the current plan.
Okay, so there's as is and what you want to do.
Right, well, what you voted on and what the planning board voted on, and then what, in fact, we're proposing tonight. And so I just thought it would be helpful to see that, that difference. It's a fairly small difference, but it is a difference.
Is the plan you're showing us, is it the one that was submitted back in 2019?
Yes, yeah. That was the original plan, and that showed 43 parking spaces, no loading areas at all. And the current plan, as you can see on the lower right-hand side, the current plan shows 2 loading areas. And that causes us to lose parking because we had to take parking spaces and convert them into loading areas.
Yep.
So now we're out of compliance with parking. We were in compliance with parking before this loading area snafu became, a loading bay snafu came to light. But now we're out of conformance with the parking regulation by 2 spaces. And also the board, as recited in the legal ad, the section of the zoning ordinance, the board would need to consider a variance for the parking as well as for the loading bays. And I stress bays because all we're providing is loading areas.
So it's these 2 areas, the 10 by 27 and the 10 by 24 area that we're talking about here.
Yes. Yes.
So it's going from 40 spaces to 38?
It's going from 43 spaces to 38.
Plus they need, I mean, if I'm right,
I don't know
I
if-
think they need,
I don't know if you
I
can, you
can
recused yourself. I don't know if you can.
I can speak.
I don't know if you can, you recused yourself. Sorry.
I'm sorry, it's going from 42 to 40.
42 to 40, okay.
42 to 40.
And the required number was, it's now, and because of those 2 spaces, it's now out of compliance.
Right.
It was in compliance, but now because you
It
need
was,
this
we had
area.
43, so we were in compliance with the 42 requirement, but now we're down to 40 because of having to take the loading area and convert that. As a practical matter, what we envision is it being used as a parking space because our leases require the tenants to load first thing in the morning. They're not allowed to load all day long.
Just a quick question, sorry. So do these loading areas, do they have time restrictions on them? Or are they 24/7?
Well, they're 24/7, but as a practical matter, I think we expect that they could be used for parking, again, because the leases require tenants to accept deliveries early in the morning and not accept deliveries all day long.
So from, say like 10 in the morning on, there's probably not going to be trucks there loading and people are going to park there anyway.
That's exactly correct. And what also is important to point out, there's 10 separate spaces in this strip mall, I'll call it, and for lack of a better term, and they're all small spaces, at least relatively small. They're all about 950 square feet. So the uses that are there really don't warrant loading bays, perhaps with the exception of a mattress store, which is in one of the 950 square foot units.
Are there actually that many spaces there, or did anybody take 2? Did anybody take more than 1 space there and combine?
Take more than one?
So,
Storefronts? Did they
storefronts.
provide storefronts?
Did anybody take more than 1 storefront?
Well, right now, that's in the courts. The first two spaces on Maplewood, the two closest to Maplewood are unoccupied right now. It was intended to be a small liquor store. The city rejected the applicant's application for a liquor license. The ABCC overturned it. The city appealed the ABCC overturning of the, so it's had a protracted legal history, and it's remained vacant while this has been going on.
Okay. Each space is 950 square feet?
More or less. They're all pretty uniform. But I would just point out in your decision of March of 2019, you granted a variance for minor deviation from the setback requirements. And at that time, you found that the property was unique with the unusual shape of the lot. And of course, you also found a hardship. But here tonight, I think the hardship is about as big a hardship as I have ever come in contact with, because the hardship would be, if you don't grant the variance, the city could order part of the building torn down to somehow accommodate loading bays. And I think we could all appreciate, since it's a relatively new building, the financial hardship of that type of consequence would be rather dramatic. But also the planning board voted 2 special permits, again, with these same plans. It's just unfortunate that neither the city nor the developer realized that we had omitted loading bays, because we would have addressed that in terms of some sort of relief, I imagine, prior to the construction starting.
What are the other businesses there? There's a mattress place, there's like some type of
There's
exercise place?
There's 2 hair salons.
Yeah.
There's a clothing store. There's a pet fish and supplies. There's a medical, well, it's deemed a medical center, but because the person who's there does semi-medical procedures, I call it, intravenous hydration, and I had it written down because I don't know what it is, microblading.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, in dermal filings, so that was considered medical use, but that, it's really a beauty, it's a beauty and medical. They do facials and so forth.
So these businesses they're not getting daily deliveries.
No, they're not. A personal trainer is there.
What's going on in the back of the building?
It's just a fire exit.
There's no rear doors, they're not
Well,
delivering to the back doors?
Just as a fire exit.
Okay.
It's very tight in the back, yeah.
Okay.
But, so again, there's been 3 separate zoning reliefs granted in this case, and the developer went ahead in good faith and built this. So we're, asking for your indulgence on this.
Can I ask you a question? I have in my notes a plan, it looks like from January of 2019 that we approved, January 30th, 2019. The plan you gave me looks like it's from March or May of 2019. It looks like it's slightly different.
The only difference is, and I was going to point that out, but I didn't think it was exceptionally relevant, but there were 2 curb cuts on Maplewood, and the planning board required us to take one
One out.
curb cut out, so there's only 1 curb cut on Maplewood.
Which probably created more parking.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and it created more parking. Yeah. So that's the difference.
Okay.
So I'd ask the board tonight to find that there's a unique shape to the land, which to the lot, which you already have done in a previous decision. A literal enforcement would be a substantial hardship, and I obviously discussed the fact that it would mean demolition of a relatively new building to somehow address the issue. And it would be without detriment to the public good and without nullifying the intent of the zoning. I would suggest again that it's a 2-pronged variance if the board would the board's considering the loading bay versus loading area, and I think granting a variance from loading bays, period, because we're only providing 2 loading areas, and the two parking space deficit.
I just have one more question. So the leases state that they can't have deliveries between when?
They can't have deliveries after 11 a.m.
After 11 a.m. And when do these businesses generally open?
Some of them don't open till noontime. I mean, some of them open earlier, but very few. There's just really little activity on the site in terms of parking needs, certainly, before 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Can you explain the variances again? I think are you saying that it needs at least 3 loading bays, or what are we varying?
Well, as I read the zoning ordinance, each individual space would require a loading bay.
Each parking space requires?
No, each store.
Each store.
Each store.
How many
Which,
stores are there?
there's 10 there, and again, they're all about 950 square feet. So the likelihood of a 950 square foot store needing a loading bay is somewhat unlikely. But
I
that,
mean, and in reality, they're just gonna pull up right in front of the storefront, block cars and unload their trucks anyway.
well, and some of these folks, of course, do their own shopping.
Right.
The hair
True,
salons, the personal trainer.
Yep.
There really isn't large trucks coming in.
Right.
Maybe the mattress store on occasion,
It'll probably be a straight truck, like probably a 26-foot box truck.
Right.
Probably wouldn't be a tractor trailer.
And plus, you can only fit so much into a 950 square foot
Right.
space, right?
They're not warehousing a lot there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any more questions?
To follow up on Adam's question, so is it 2 variances that you're requesting? One regarding the loading bay and then a second regarding the parking?
That's correct, because we lost parking when we had to create the loading areas, you see. Those were parking spaces in our prior plan where we met the requirement of the zoning ordinance.
They did conform, but
But now
They-
would we not conform with the bays?
But I guess everybody missed.
Everybody,
loading
everybody missed it.
area?
I can't take credit because I was not
Yeah.
on this case when that happened back then, but the developer missed it, the city missed it.
Yeah.
Do we
But
have,
they also have contingencies in their leases that says they can only they can't get deliveries past 11. And some of these businesses don't open till noon.
Could a condition be put on it that, like, I don't know, we can, like, allow those bays to be, like, flexible between being, like, loading bay during certain hours and then parking, like, during others, or tie in that, like, all deliveries need to be made by, like, before a certain time?
So can those spots become loading area only between sunrise and 11 a.m.?
Sure.
And then that would conform to parking and still not conform to the loading areas, but in reality, those businesses, like those, when they get deliveries, they're
Right,
not
they're
gonna be
just gonna
using those
pull it up
areas
front.
anyway. They're gonna pull up
Yeah.
right in front of the store and drop
Yeah.
their stuff off.
I
Maybe
think
put
that-
signs up, loading area only, until
Sure.
11 a.m. and then anybody can park there?
Hmm.
And then you're gonna conform to the parking.
Yes, then we'll be in
At that point.
conformance because we'll add those two.
Any other questions from the board?
so just going back to what you're requesting, I mean, how many, so you're saying there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
10.
7, 8, 9, 10 loading areas are required?
10 total loading days.
Bays. And then you're saying too that we would, because of this, you're losing parking, you're asking for a variance of the number of required parking spaces?
Well, right, from before 11 a.m. when we can't use those, when deliveries may be using those loading areas, yes.
But your other variance is a decrease in the number of parking spaces?
Well, we're no longer in conformance when those loading areas are being used as loading. After 11 o'clock, if we can use them as parking, we're in conformance, but we're too shy now because of the change in the plans in the loading areas, I'm sorry, there's 2 loading areas.
I would also add having 2 salons there, and I'm not familiar with the whole makeup of the building, but I don't think salons generally get deliveries via truck. I think it's probably UPS doing a delivery, but they're there every day, anyway.
That lot's empty every time I drive by. I
Yeah.
drive by it, I'm at my
Right.
home every single
Yeah.
day, so.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We have power, I think, to vary a variance. We can modify a variance. I don't think we actually have to give you a new variance. We would just extend the old one. For the record, I voted against the old variance, but I don't want to see, accept the projects as is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we make a motion, we have to open it to public comment. Is it, and if there's anybody that would like to speak in opposition to this, okay. So now we can make a motion.
All right, I would vote to modify our old variance and update it with these requirements. We already granted the variance. I voted against it, but there's no reason to screw them over now. But that seems pretty reasonable. If anyone wants to include that condition, I'm fine with that, if anyone wanted to throw that in.
Those words?
What?
Those words?
Very articulate. Very articulate. Throw it in.
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. I mean,
I don't think it's needed, they're gonna do it anyway.
You mean they're gonna park there?
yeah, they're gonna park there anyway.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're gonna get a delivery, they're gonna get a delivery. They're just gonna do it. So, I mean,
Delivery drivers aren't gonna hang around.
right. They're gonna be there 10 minutes. So, okay. Was that a motion?
Yes.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Make sure it says, I don't want to screw them.
All right, our motion by Sherwin to modify the old variances to accommodate the 2 new ones that are stated in the petition 23007, second by Froyo. We'll take a call. All right, so we'll start over there. So we'll start with Chu.
Yes.
Thank you. Codavarian.
Yes.
Sherwin.
Yes.
Froyo.
Yes.
And Kramer.
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor? Petition 23007 is granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Okay. So that was the only petition we had to hear tonight. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
I can't make the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I will second it.
Casual every day.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn at 6:54.
Is that good, Paul?
I have to go to job sites half the time, so I don't want to get too dressed up. It's like construction dust flying all over the place.